Go back to again. You're growing up. You're playing at Monkland. You got your junior days there, and then where did your tennis lead after? Where did it take you? You went to the States.
Yeah. So I played. See, back then, people as in this province, anyways, people play tennis. The tennis play tennis basically from Saint Jean Baptiste till Labor Day. So my season was basically only about 12 weeks long. We all played the other sports. I was a pretty decent athlete. So I played football at Loyola. I played on the hockey team at Loyola. And even while I was playing tennis, I was pitching for the NDG Maple Leafs. So I was going back and forth with all this and playing all the sports. And then, as you get a little older, some of the guys are starting to concentrate more on one sport. But I loved my hockey. I just would not give up my hockey, And I played with a lot of good guys. And so I'm playing hockey up till I'm 17. And at that point, you see guys are catching up and, your ranking's starting to dip a bit, especially not so much in Quebec, but the rest of Canada. Of course, guys are playing more indoors. The indoor clubs now are around. So at the age of 17, this is going a long ways back. This is going back to 1975. And the Broad Street Bullies, some members will remember the Philadelphia Flyers winning all the Stanley Cups.
Yeah.
And they had a different kind of hockey. They had a kind of hockey that was, a little rough and tumble. And I didn't shy away from it, but I still had my two front teeth. And at that point, I was there, okay. But I had my buddies, a couple of guys that played in the NHL who were heading out to play college hockey out in the Maritimes. And I was going to go that route until I got a call in May from school, a junior college in Florida, who said, we heard about you, blah, blah, blah. A guy named Steve Rogel who was the national champ 2 years previous, had recommended me. And he said, and the coach down there said, we could give you a full ride.
Nice.
So I talked to my dad. So I went down there on a full ride. And that was the first time, Zach, that I played 12 months of the year. I gave up hockey, gave up everything. So I played basically. And so when I came back at the age 18, I could play, like anything, You play 12 months of the year, and so all of a sudden, I'm beating guys that over the last year and a half, 2 years used to beat me. And so at the age 18, I said, I could maybe be a player. So I went, like yourself, went through university, played, some pretty good players in university and enjoyed it. Monkland was always part of it. Each scene I'd come home in the summer. Allard Code gave me a job as a summer pro there, as the assistant pro. I worked with him 1 year. Then the Montreal West Tennis Club needed a head pro in the summer. So I would go play there. So I wouldn't play in the summer. Once I was out of juniors, my last year juniors.
You reverse your schedule.
Yeah,
and 4 months during the summer to everything but the summer.
That's very true. Very true, And so then, I was getting to my graduating year. I had missed a year because I mentioned earlier, I played all the sports and I had a bum left shoulder.
Okay.
And I used to have a pretty good serve,
Oh, I've heard.
So my shoulder was pretty.
The famous lefty serve in Montreal. Let me tell you, I've heard many things. You didn't even have to say that. I know.
So I had to take care of my shoulder 1 year because after 2 years of university, my shoulder was shot. And so I stayed home for 1 semester to get my shoulder. I had a surgery on it, and I still have the big zipper on my left shoulder to show for it. Anyways, so did that, played some more good tennis, but was missing 1 semester because I sat out a semester to get my degree.
Okay.
And I was playing good tennis. I came back to Montreal, and that year, some people said, why don't you take the summer off and just play? So I played, and I did.
Good experience.
I did pretty well, and I got, Montreal Cup and all this provincially, and so then I made the decision. At that point, I'd beaten Lejeune, I'd beaten Senegal, I'd beaten all the guys who were the top guys in the province. I could never beat Régent Genois. He was quite a player. Wow.
Yeah, that's another big name.
Yeah. So at that point, I decided to maybe give rather than go back to university, give the Pro Tour a shot. So that's what I did. And people from the Monkland too also encouraged me. They saw me grow up and everything else, and a lot of support from them. You know, it was great. It was great. Yeah.
Oh, it's nice to hear, harnessing really, they say it takes like a village to raise a child. And I find when there really are these kids that are coming up through these communities, same thing with me when I was younger. I mean, I'm a Côte St. Luc boy, but same thing when I grew up at my club, you have people that get behind you that understand in the summers how you really have those few weeks to really make it a crunch, get good, play with everybody that wants to play with you. And it just makes for great memories, One thing I do actually also want to hit on is you had mentioned the indoor club scene, like some more indoor clubs were being built in Montreal at a certain time. And so when I was growing up, there's just a ton of clubs, right? So you had Rockland Tennis Club that was in existence. I trained myself at Tennis Saint Laurent. You had Mirabel Racket Club. You had Tennis West Island. I mean, these are all clubs they're gone now. Why do you think all that happened?
Well, I have my opinion,
Yeah.
My humble opinion. There were too many, first of all, at that point for the market here in Montreal. That was for sure. At the beginning, they were at a price that they were able to make money. And then Jarry Park came around. That's what I was at Rockland for years.
Yeah.
And I know Jarry Park being not too far away, that took away some of our membership, because you didn't have to be a member over at Jarry Park.
Yeah.
And, tennis at that point too was, going down in a little bit of a slide. And you look, I mean, Montreal is not Toronto, obviously, it just isn't money wise. But I know my brothers are in Toronto, and I remember what it cost to play indoor tennis back in the 80s.
Okay.
And you played indoor tennis in Montreal back in the 80s, it cost you about $2,500 to $3,000. It's about the same now. It's not a lot much heavier here. But in Toronto, you play now in Toronto at indoor club, you're looking at 25 Gs to 30 Gs to play.
Yeah.
So these clubs back then, because, I remember back with Rockland, if our club, we had 10 courts. If we didn't operate with membership dues, we knew we had to get, it was a 10-court facility. We had to have 500 members, and we had to work at 85% occupancy starting from 8 in the morning till 10 o'clock at night for the owner, who was Peter Maloof, who was a great guy, for him to make any kind of money. Yeah, and, he had a passion for the sport. He had a love for the sport, and he stayed in it as long as he could. And I remember the last couple of years, him talking to myself and the other pros and that, and he goes, guys, I don't know if I can, keep doing this. It's just, and they went, because they didn't have the monthly dues back then either, Zach.
Right.
So he was one of the first clubs, you had a straight membership, and then you paid court fees. Okay. And then they went to the monthly dues because he figured he could generate a little more revenue, which he did. He had to lower the court costs. And, it helped things out, but the overhead for an indoor facility is just, it was just too much. So, I mean, that's my humble opinion why one by one, a lot of them went down. They just couldn't, Yeah. I know our guy over at Nuns Island, thank God for guys like Shapovalov and Ronich and all these big players, Andrescu. Our junior program at our Nuns Island is cool. What keeps us going. I mean, that's, because, we have our leagues, our ladies programs, casual court time has dropped dramatically. There's very little permanent time anymore. Okay. So thank God, I think tennis is on the upswing again, with all these new Canadian superstars. Yeah. And it looks like it's heading in the right direction.
Yeah, no, you make a ton of sense. And yeah, right away you can see in any tennis program, just obviously enrollment has just shot up in the last couple of years. You mentioned, Bianca, the Shapovalovs, the Felixes, and, Vasek Pospisil is having a great comeback now. Milos Raonic has really a huge role in getting it all started, really, and, going deeper in Grand Slams, like showing kids that you can actually be successful in the Pro Tour and, bringing tennis to Canada. I mean, we're not that many people, right, compared to the U.S. or some other countries. And, the footprint they've had. I mean, going back to the indoor clubs, though, I always thought an indoor club would do so well on the carry, like, let's say near the Hippodrome or like the old Blue Bonnets used to be, like something central. I mean, Rockland was also central. And I just never thought about how the impact that, let's say, Jarry Park had on opening their courts to a public facility. And just charging for court time and not a membership fee, right? That obviously plays a huge role in it. So, but who knows?
Yeah.
I mean, outdoor wise,
Yeah.
I think the outdoor clubs are really busy. I know at Monkland we had a waiting list last summer. I mean, I'm by half the time. Your courts are full. A lot of the local clubs around here, even the public courts, sometimes I'll walk over to Summerlin and play there. Tough to get a court. Like the courts are just being used in the city. Tennis does seem to see, it's pretty vibrant. It's just how you want to go about it.
You hear the story, and it's too bad, concussions have caused a lot of the parents to be concerned, right, with some of these contact sports.
Sure.
I mean, the sport of football, which I grew up with, everybody loved, it's down like over 60%, across the continent. Yeah. And what do these kids do then? They play tennis or they play soccer, So the boom is back, I think.
Yeah, that's a great point too. I mean, we've got a ton of kids coming over from like the LCC families now, or that's really a thing with Monkland Tennis. A lot of the kids, I know sports is huge at LCC, and I know they have their football program, which is quite successful. But show them that they have something right in their own backyard that they can use the facility as well. So, where did you go to school growing up?
I went to Loyola.
Oh, you're at Loyola.
Loyola High School. So LCC was our arch nemesis. So I played a lot of games right out there on LCC field.
That field, eh? Yeah, they probably wasn't because they have the turf there now too. They have like half the field is like turf, half it is grass. But
yeah.
So besides that, you're pretty healthy, Greg. Everything's good with your friends.
Everything's good. Okay. Whoops. Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, everything is good. Okay. Everything is good. And complain, and hopefully itching to get back on the court, Zach? It's we're hoping. We've talked a little bit about it. We're hoping. In July we're going to see. Who knows? What's going to happen.
Yeah.
We're at the whatever the government decides. But I know members are. I'm sure, like you, are emailing me left, right, and center, wanting to know any news, and we're in that holding pattern. But let's hope we get back out there soon.
Definitely. Greg, listen, you, if and when we get back out there, I'd love to see that lefty serve in person. So you got to come by the court. I'd love to see you out there. We should hit sometime.
I will for sure. Right. I will. Yeah.
I appreciate you taking the time.
Thanks for having me. Way to go, Monkland. Thank you, Zach.
Greg, keep up the walks. Keep up the healthy eating. Take care.